Okay, what's up? We're back
How's it
with the
going?
podcast. How's it going, Ryan?
Good, man. How you doing?
Doing good. Excited to get into this. We're gonna do like kind of a rapid fire podcast today and talk about some newsletter ideas, newsletter businesses that you can start in a weekend. We did this a couple months ago and it got a really good response.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I feel like we'll. How many ideas do you have, by the way? I feel like we'll need to do this
I
pretty
think I
rapid
just have
fire.
two or three because we're
Okay,
gonna do
cool.
a short episode today.
Yeah,
But I have a lot of details around those.
cool.
But just two.
Nice. Okay, I've got four here. We'll see if we hit all of them. But
Yeah, I'll let you start in a second. One thing I want to mention is we're trying to optimize this podcast more for YouTube. So some people who may not have listened to us before might be hearing this. So like the background on me and Ryan is we worked at a newsletter called The Hustle that was acquired by HubSpot for 27 million. We work with a lot of the biggest newsletter publishers and the biggest creators out there. So we know what we're doing when it comes to this. So we'll get into the ideas now. So if you already know that, sorry for the spiel, but for new people, I got to let everybody know what's up.
right on. You want to kick us off?
Yeah, I can do that. Let's see here. I'll start with one that is a little bit more out there. And so you've all seen the rise of global talent or overseas talent, right? Overseas recruiting agencies like Sport Shepherd, now somewhere.com have blown up. There have been a lot of other ones too, like Athena. There's many more. And even things like onlinejobs.ph has blown up. That's actually like an 8-figure business. It's essentially just a job board for people in the Philippines who want to find remote online jobs. It's an 8-figure business. There's literally dozens of recruiting agencies that have grown to 7, 8 figures over the past 12 months or so. And I don't think this trend is going to stop. I think this is like the new version of globalization, like in the 90s, in 2000s, manufacturing, or even before that, manufacturing went overseas to China, Mexico, etc. Now white collar jobs are going overseas to the Philippines, South America, India, etc. It's going to, in some ways, be a negative impact, especially for labor, but for business owners, it's going to be good in many ways. So I'm not passing any moral judgment on it. I just wanted to set the stage for why this is a good idea. I'm a business owner. I've tried to hire a lot of people from overseas. Some have been great, but one of the problems is this is like it's their English is really good, right? But the skill set, especially for sophisticated marketing task, is not really there. That's why most of the overseas people are virtual assistants. They're doing basically simpler, repeatable tasks. They're not doing sophisticated marketing, and so it's also really hard to find the talented people who can do that. And there's a couple of reasons I think for that. One is like the education is not there. Like a lot of people, most of those people have college degrees, but they're not talking about current digital marketing in those degrees. And then a lot of people overseas, the marketing experience they're getting is not the type of stuff that we're getting in the US. Like when they're working for a company in South America, like their ad spend budgets are like $1,000 a month, $2,000 per month, where marketers that are at a college are working with $100,000 per month ad budgets in the US, and they're just learning way faster. So I think like you could basically solve this problem and grow a very large audience by creating a newsletter that is for overseas marketers who want to get remote jobs in the US or from Western Europe. And the you can acquire this audience at such a crazy low cost. Have you ever run ads in places like India or the Philippines or like outside of North America before?
Yeah, very low CPMS. Very
Yes,
low.
crazy low CPMs.
Yeah. For those who are listening that aren't like familiar with marketing terms, basically just the cost to show an impression on your ad is very, very low. So you can show the ad to a large population of people for what is relatively cheap.
Yeah, and so we're talking like 30-cent cost per subscriber, 20-cent cost per subscriber, sometimes as low as 10 cent for an email subscriber for a real person in places like India, Philippines, South America. And you want to target these populations that are already used to like remote jobs overseas, and those are really the three main areas. There's more, but those are the three main ones. And then have a 1 to 3 time per week newsletter that has a couple of different sections. So here's what I would do. I'd have section number one is like good remote jobs in marketing. So it's essentially like a job board, but notifications about jobs because they're always looking for opportunities. And it's really hard to get opportunities because there's so much competition. So you got to stay on top of new jobs that are being published. Section number two, marketing news. Just understanding what's happening in the world of digital marketing so they're up to speed for their job. And then number three is a section that's a marketing tutorial or a tactic. And this could be various things: paid acquisition, CRO, email marketing, copywriting. The list goes on. There's tons of different things you can talk about. And what I would focus this on is like full stack digital marketers. It's hard to focus it on like just one niche because it's already a pretty niche concept. So I would cover like the fundamentals of full stack digital marketing in that section of the newsletter. Now, the tricky thing about this is like you're not really going to monetize that audience that you're building up in Philippines, India, South America, Eastern Europe, etc. Like you're not going to be able to make a lot of money from them. Yeah, you can sell them a course, a community, and you probably should, especially a great course that's going to go deeper into those things. But that's not where you're going to make your money. You're going to make your money from the Western audience, the people in the US and Europe that want to hire those people. And because these people are already subscribed to a marketing newsletter, they're reading educational content, maybe they're buying a course, they're self-selecting as like a more skilled marketer than the average person applying for jobs. And so a Western audience of business owners like me wants to get in front of those people. And so you're going to do that in a couple ways. One, you're going to have a job board. And at first, I would make that job board free to post to, so you're just getting jobs posted. But then you're going to charge $300 to $500 for basically a boost, where someone you publish the job board, but it's also featured in the newsletter. And again, we can quickly build up a newsletter audience of 10,000, 20,000 people at such a low cost. You can also basically, if we're collecting data on this audience, so as someone international subscribes, we're going to collect data about, okay, what's your job title, what's your past experience, basically collecting all of the resume information, what's your skill set. And so we have all this data on our subscribers, and we can send out dedicated email blasts to people who fit the criteria for a job that we're hiring for our advertisers, right? So you can charge even more for that. Maybe you can charge between $1,000 to $5,000. I would say maybe $2,000 for those sponsored email blasts to find applicants. And then also you could partner or create your own recruiting agency and build it on the back of this newsletter. Instead of just going out to Indeed and all the other crappy job boards, onlinejobs.ph, you have a captive audience that you can bring these jobs to, and you can curate that audience and find the best people from it. You have a lot of data on them too. And so it sets you up, it gives you a big competitive advantage if you're building a recruiting agency or choosing to partner with one. And so those are the three ways I would monetize. I would also sell the course to the international audience, but just to run you through this, like let's say we spend 5K on ads and we acquire subscribers for 25 cents. That's 20,000 subscribers. We do a $300 charge for a job posting, and we do 10 jobs per month, and 10 jobs per newsletter, 3 newsletters per week. That's $36,000 in promoted jobs. 20 email blasts per month at $2,000 each. That's 40K. And then 0.5% of the newsletter list per month buys a $100 course. That is $10,000 in revenue per month. So I actually don't have the total number for that written down. I'm not going to find it right now. But you can start to build up a pretty sizable business with an audience of 20 to 50,000 subscribers that you got for really cheap. So that's the idea. What do you think?
I love it. Yeah, I think the leverage that you would have in having a community of folks, to your point, that's kind of self-select for being interested in like further education and learning more about marketing, it gives you a lot of leverage to build that job board. And I like the idea of like the recruiting agency. I think that's really cool. It's funny, just from experience. I think that folks, I think that it's kind of an underrated opportunity for people that have courses or have communities that are centered around training people in certain jobs. Is like the recruiting agency aspect of that. Like I know for our agency for Tailwind, like when we're looking for copywriters, kind of like a hack of in some way that we found is reaching out to people that have copywriting courses or copywriting communities and asking if they can recommend students of theirs that have performed really well or excelled.
Yeah.
And a lot of them just don't have formal either like recruiting wings of their community or groups. So I all to say, I think that's a really unique and cool way of monetizing an audience like that.
Yeah, that could almost be another idea is like find all the best online courses about certain topics and just build like a recruiting arm for them.
Mm-hmm.
I know people have requested this, of course, as like ship 30 for 30 a ton. And I don't
Yeah.
think Dickey and Cole have done that, but I know I would love to use that. But I think the final thing I'll say about this is like it's solving a real problem. It's really scratching my itch where it's like I've worked with some of these recruiting agencies, have not seen great results. The talent hasn't been very talented. And also, if you're someone in that position, you're overseas, you're trying to find your remote job. It's very hard. It's very competitive. So you want to get the latest jobs and you want to improve your skill set. And I think this can solve both sides of that equation.
Love it. It's a great one to kick us off. And I like the detail with the numbers too. You gave the revenue numbers too. So that's awesome. At least the estimates there. Awesome. Okay. I'll hop into my first one. So this is a little bit broader. It's more of just like a platform-based newsletter. So you look at influencers like Miss Excel, for example, and they've built eight-figure businesses off of just creating courses and content for how to use a tool like Excel. It might be worth thinking through what are the platforms or programs in your industry, or even broader, just platforms that a lot of folks use, and could you build a newsletter centered around education for that? So a specific example that I think of, having messed around with like music production for a while, is like something like a music production app like Logic or like Ableton. If you were to create a newsletter that is just education on and advanced tips for a program like that, I think the monetization opportunities, first of all, I think growth would be fairly straightforward because you just target the kinds of people that use those platforms and apps. You could post in forums, you could post in subreddits and communities. You could even target, I'm sure, folks that are interested in that on paid platforms. But the monetization opportunities, specifically affiliate opportunities for all sorts of plugins, products, courses. If you're doing something in music, like I mentioned, like even like instruments and stuff like that, I think are very compelling. Like I think you could find some great ways to monetize it as well. And so, just thinking through, might be worth thinking through for folks listening. Are there platforms that everyone, or platforms or tools that, or software that everyone in your industry uses? If you're good at it, or if you can learn to get good at it, or at least source, useful, actionable tips, putting that in a newsletter might be able to build you pretty valuable audience of professionals, and then you can monetize that fairly quickly as well.
I like that. And there's a lot of big companies. There's a lot of big education and course companies like Miss Excel that focus on one platform or software. There's I can't think of a ton of examples, but there's a lot more out there. There's also training companies or implementation companies. Have you heard of like Salesforce implementation agencies?
Yeah, yeah.
There's a lot
Or
of
same with
7 and 8
HubSpot.
figure,
Yeah,
yeah, HubSpot implementation agencies. Like there's a lot. We're in the marketing and sales world, so like we know those examples, but there's a lot more outside of that. Cybersecurity, the list goes on. And so I think if the platforms are pretty obvious, I think like HubSpot's one, Salesforce is one, even Beehive could be one potentially. WordPress, Perplexity, the AI tool, I think you could build around one of those, for example. You gave a good example too. There's a lot of stuff out there. Klaviyo, that's a really tricky one. Like every e-commerce business uses,
yeah.
so it
And
makes a lot of sense.
to your point, if you another monetization opportunity there, if you learn enough and have the bandwidth and the desire to do something like this, you could very easily upsell to an implementation agency or some sort of a consulting opportunity, and that could be kind of the back end on that.
Yeah, at the very least, you can partner with one of those and get a commission. A lot of these commissions can be pretty lucrative if it's a $50,000-$100,000 contract for one of these agencies, and you're getting 10% for 12 months, which is around the industry standard for something like that. That's a big deal, right? I've also seen, I saw someone brought this up, or basically they're like, how ClickFunnels has these like page templates? Have you ever seen those? That you can create a page template and share it with other folks. Have you seen
Uh,
stuff like that with ClickFunnels? If you haven't, it's okay.
yeah, I mean, it's essentially just like a templated funnel, almost, or templated landing page.
Yeah, but the cool thing about, other people have done this too outside of ClickFunnels is like you build it and then you can share that with anyone. And if they sign up for ClickFunnels through that template, you get an affiliate commission off of them. And so
Oh,
I
cool.
thought like that's another way. That's something you can also include in one of these newsletters too. It's like, hey, if we're doing like the Beehive or the HubSpot newsletter, I built a HubSpot template for XYZ. If you want to get it, sign up through HubSpot through my affiliate link, and I will give it to you for free. If you don't, if you already have HubSpot, you can pay $100 for it, $200 for it, whatever. So that's just another, it's still an affiliate opportunity to monetize, but it's just another way to get a higher conversion rate on that affiliate offer you're promoting.
Yeah, and you think, I mean, there are, depending on the size of the platform, but for a lot of tools and software, like you think of like even like Photoshop or something like that, there's entire ecosystems and economies built around just like an individual tool of people trying to sell integrations, plugins, templates, to your point. So there are going to be folks that are going to want to get in front of that audience, whether it be through a sponsorship, like a paid flat fee sponsorship, or an affiliate opportunity. So I do think that there's a lot of monetization opportunity for folks that execute this well.
I like it. Do you have another quick one?
Yes, I have a quicker one. So this one, maybe not super groundbreaking, but I think the format idea that I had for it might be interesting. So an unofficial sports team newsletter. So kind of your sports team, your local sports team. Um, but the format for it that I thought could be interesting is, or at least the approach to developing the newsletter, is finding other collaborators or contributors on subreddits or forums, and having the format of the newsletter essentially be, here's what happened like this week, and then just have multiple of the most interesting takes from those contributors. So you could very easily source people that are going to want to just like, I mean, that's all these like subreddits and forums for these sports teams are people just kind of like giving their take on it. So if you can source the most interesting take, and maybe whether that be just pulling the comment and linking to it, or asking these people for a longer form contribution, what you could do is basically build a panel almost of contributors very quickly, and have some really interesting, entertaining takes for that, sports teams happenings. And I just love the idea too, because I think like if you grow a big enough audience for an unofficial sports team newsletter like that, like who knows what the perks could be too, right? I mean, we've talked about with like local newsletters, like, and I think this is kind of adjacent to a local newsletter in a way, if the sports team is small
Yeah.
enough, that is. But who knows the opportunities that might open up because of that.
There's a lot, especially if you're kind of considered pressed. You can do a lot with that, and if you're a fan, even better. That's cool. It's kind of like user generated content, UGC, right? And Bleacher Report, which is a big sports media company, I think they started with UGC, and that was a long time ago, and I don't remember all the details around it. But it's definitely a great way to start because it takes you your number one cost, which is content creation, takes it out of the picture to some degree. And it also allows you to scale more horizontally. So, like if you wanted to do like 5 of these at a time, start with 5 and then go to dozens more, you have a framework for it that's easier to replicate across multiple teams, which is really how something like this would scale to be a big business. Is you got to have a dozen, 2 dozen of these newsletters for multiple teams, and it's a valuable position. Not a lot of coverage of your like logo team. I mean, if it's a big franchise like Dallas Cowboys, yeah, there's a lot of coverage for that. But like your smaller local teams are not going to have that same type of coverage that people crave.
Yeah, you could think of it almost as like from like a meme or like a humor perspective too, right? Because I mean, think about like the memes and just like funny comments. I mean, I don't know if you're active in any like subreddits for sports teams, but I think about ones that I'm involved in or visit pretty often, and like there's some just hilarious comments and like really funny takes, and like inside jokes. And the misconception might be, oh, well, those are on that Reddit, or those are on that subreddit or that forum. Well, like most sports fans, like a very small percentage of them are going to be looking at those places anyway. So if you're able to curate those takes, those jokes, those memes, and distribute them via the newsletter, and even in a collaborative way where you're sourcing them directly from the people or asking for permission, or however you want to approach it, I do think that there's value there, and people would be interested in that.
Yeah, and you can create a narrative around those too. It saves time, is another benefit of that. And then you can start to like get your own contributors or start your own Facebook group or whatever, Discord community, whatever it might be. So you can do that with your audience. So I like that a lot. And literally right before this isn't an idea that I had planned to share, but I was thinking about like a newsletter that's just like the best of Wall Street bets delivered to your inbox, which is a subreddit I used to check a lot, but like I just don't really have time anymore. And there's just so much junk to sort through because there's millions of members in that now. I wish someone would just give me like what are the best 5 posts that happened that week. And this is stuff that involves trading, so potentially it could be kind of like a benefit of make more money, even though you could also lose a lot of money following advice there. But I think it would be. I would subscribe to that. I think it would be fun and valuable. And also, you could start with Wall Street bets, but there's so many subreddits that are similar, or there's so many Discord groups that are similar, and then you can also expand to those later. And it's a type of content that's really easy to create. It just literally takes time and some taste for the curation that you're doing.
100%. Yeah. Yeah, you
Yeah.
definitely want a big disclaimer on the Wall Street Bets newsletter. But yeah.
Yeah, and I like both of these. I tend to like business and finance stuff more because there's just more advertising opportunities, so that's why I like that one. But both can be great, and if you can do this with like 100 sports teams, you can build a very big advertising business. So, not to say that one is better than the other.
Yeah, I think the concept, I thought of it in the terms of sports teams because I was on like my sports team subreddit, and like some of these comments are just gold, and it would be, a lot of people aren't seeing this. But really, I mean, you could do it for any subject, any niche, any vertical. just this kind of contributor approach, and using those forums as the like channel in which you source the contributors or the content.
Yeah, and this is like a class. This is not new by any means. Like if you look at local papers, they'll have like what our community is saying sections, and like readers will write in and say something. It's usually like controversial or has a little bit of drama about their local community, and that's one of the most popular sections in these papers. Like I've read papers like that before. So this is no different than that. And I like that idea of taking like what's old is new, going back to print media, pulling the most popular sections from that and making that digital. A lot of that's already been done already, obviously, but there's still room to use that idea. Cool.
Definitely. All right, you got another one?
I got one more I think I can run through really quickly, and then we'll wrap it up here. So this is also local news, but it's different. So the idea is to start a local real estate investing newsletter and to over time expand that horizontally to different cities. And so what I would do is you don't want to start the local real estate investing newsletter for San Francisco or New York. Those are too big. We're thinking cities or towns that are 300,000 to a million people across the US. Lots of those in the Southeast, Midwest, etc. And we're targeting the audience of local real estate investors who want to buy in that area. Could be single family homes, duplex, apartment, whatever. And what you're going to do is, go to Zillow, go to Redfin, MLS, even contact local realtors and see like what are the best properties that are being listed or about to be listed in your area that are investable. And you could do some basic math to help investors out so they can understand like their cost with potential mortgage rates, their potential returns on the property, cash on cash return. I'm not a real estate investor, so I don't know all the terms and all that good stuff. But basically, every property has 10 to 20 newsletters that you think could be lucrative investment opportunities. And you send that newsletter probably to start one time a week. And then over time, you can go 2, 3, 4 times a week as you are selling more advertising inventory in the newsletter. And because this is all curated, I think once you do the first 5 or 10 newsletters, you can have a virtual assistant that's like $5, $7 an hour do this for you and do the entire content creation and publishing process for you for a very low cost, maybe $500 or $1,000 a month. That's your content creation cost. And content creation is totally off of your hands. There's a lot of, so once you do that, you got to go and build up the audience, of course. So like we always go back to Facebook ads, especially in with local targeting, the cost to acquire is really low. I think that could be under $1 to $2, definitely under $2 for this. There's a lot of local Facebook groups, subreddits, etc. for investors. And because it's just so relevant, like if you're an investor in that area, you want to subscribe to this, it's like much easier to grow a local newsletter in many times than it is to grow a national newsletter. As counterintuitive as that sounds, it's very true. And there's a lot of stuff you can do with this, but just to walk you through the monetization opportunities, there's a couple of things. So one I think is like partnerships with local real estate professionals, whether it's realtors, property managers, bankers who are lending to investors, having them sponsor the newsletter. I think that's a good idea. There's other opportunities outside of that too. And what I would do if I'm trying to get my first advertiser and I have a small audience of like 1 to 5,000 subscribers, I would just like say, hey, I'm going to run you an ad and it's a flat fee and I'm going to run it until it gets 500 clicks for you. And so if you're charging like, I think that if this math is right, 500 clicks at $5, you might charge like $2,500 per ad. I'm not doing the math right now. I'm just reading off my notes here, by the way. So hopefully that's somewhat correct. And basically, once you get that first advertiser, you reinvest all the ad revenue that you got back into growth, and then you get more advertisers at a higher rate. Once you have between 5 to 10,000 subscribers in one city, and you have some advertisers coming in, you can just duplicate this entire thing for another city. It could be one nearby. If there's some synergies there, it could be one across the country. And you can start to get to 3, 5 cities pretty quickly. So that's kind of step one, is like your advertising and sponsorship monetization. But once you have some audience, you can actually sell them a product. So there's a lot of like real estate courses, real estate seminars, information products around real estate. If 2% of your list buys a $500 local in-person seminar and networking event, and you have a list of 10,000 people, that's $100,000 in sales, right? You could also do a premium subscription where you take like 50% of the properties that are the best properties, you put them behind a paywall, and you charge $1,000 per year for that content. And so You can build up recurring revenue that way. So if 2% of your 10K list convert to that $1,000 per year subscription, you have $200,000 in annual recurring revenue, which is not a bad number for that list size if you're able to get that conversion rate. So that's the idea. What are your thoughts here?
I love the idea, and then I also love. I think that sponsorship structure that you mentioned, I think, is underutilized too. Of kind of a guaranteed number of clicks for a placement like that, especially for folks starting out. I think that's an under discussed way to approach sponsorships for newer newsletters that are still building their audience.
Yeah, it's the best way to go because you can't be like, I will sell you one ad for $50. Like, it's not worth your time. But it's like, I'll sell you 500 clicks for $5 per click, $2,500, and then you just run that for as many weeks as you need to. You get the cash in the door to reinvest and grow. So that's awesome. Cool, man. All right, those are the ideas we got today. Any closing thoughts?
I think we'll have to revisit and do more of these very soon.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you like it, leave a YouTube comment or like the video, and we'll do more soon.